Welcome to the In Cobb We Trust podcast, and today we have our most highest profile person in Cobb County. I'm excited to interview Lisa Cupid, Chairwoman of the Cobb County Commission. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Perrin.
And always like to start off by asking you, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where'd you grow up?
Yeah.
How did you find yourself in Cobb County?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I don't know if we have enough time to answer that. But I am a wife of going on 24 years this year, and a mom of two high school age boys, one that's getting ready to graduate.
Oh, really?
And yes, that is the center of my life here on this earth, other than my faith. I'm a woman of deep faith, and also a daughter of two people that immigrated from Guyana, South America.
Oh, okay.
So I was born in New York. We're at the rite of passage for everyone. Yes,
I'm from Jersey originally.
From Jersey,
yeah.
Okay.
Bergen
Spent
County.
a lot of time in Jersey City, Bayonne.
Okay.
And I was born in Manhattan. My family moved several states. My father was an engineer, and we ended up in Metro Detroit.
Okay.
To work for the automotive industry, and I credit my father for being the dominant influence in the career path which I chose, and just being in Detroit, because the whole economy centered around the automotive industry, and being capable in math and science, I was strongly encouraged to go into engineering. And not having a lot of family in the Metro Detroit area, the only exposure I had of the most significant exposure I had of career options was my dad. My mom didn't graduate from college, and so I decided to go into engineering.
Okay.
And wanting to get as far away from home as possible, I found myself here in Georgia and was accepted into Georgia Tech.
Oh, you went to Tech?
I went to Tech,
okay.
Yes, went to study mechanical engineering. I thought I'd go back and work on cars, but a couple of unique things happened that kept me here. My father got transferred here from the same automotive company in Detroit.
So home
had
came
a plant home came to me the same semester I started, but love also came to me.
Wait, it's the same semester?
Not that semester.
Oh, okay.
It was
I was like, holy smokes.
It didn't happen that quickly. But I didn't know he would be my husband. I met my husband my second year in college, and we didn't start dating until my last semester in school, with my fifth year at Georgia Tech.
Oh, wow.
And his last name is Cupid. And him being from Augusta, I think he's in love with Georgia. We'll never leave Georgia. And we made our home here.
And I think we were talking off camera. You said this is your 13th year as part of the commission.
13th year as part of the commission. I am very grateful to have served this long and can finally feel confident in my ability to lead in local government. I, having an education and being degreed is one thing, but learning the county, learning the people of the county, being comfortable with being responsive to the varied needs of a very large county that's not just diverse with its people, it's diverse in its geography. We have some places that are quite urban, like the Battery, and then you have areas that are ex-urban, like West Cobb. We have farms that are here, horse farms
I know.
that are here, and dealing with that array, that I feel truly blessed to be able to grow up in this role and to grow as a leader, but to grow in my love for all that Cobb is.
Because you were District 4 Commissioner.
I was a District 4 Commissioner.
For, let's see if my math is correct, 8 years.
For 8 years, for 2 terms.
And then you ran for Chairwoman.
Then I ran for Chairwoman.
That was 2020.
Yes.
2020. So good year. The
That was a great year.
The last good year.
Not just for me. So
For
the last
Democrats
good year.
at large.
And it depends on who you ask. Yes, the Democrats, we fared very well in 2020. The nation and the world, not so much. It's the onset of COVID that year.
Oh, don't I know it? Yeah.
And we've been battling various illnesses since.
You know, that's funny you say that, because sometimes I feel like I'll never forget COVID. It was the worst time of my life in the hospital.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I saw a lot of death. But somehow, sometimes my brain just blocks that out as like some protective mechanism.
Yes.
So when I was thinking 2020, I was thinking like the election. I was like, yes, finally, like we had some hope, you know. And since things have changed, but let me ask you about the chairwoman role, because I don't think people really realize, like, you're the only full-time position on the commission.
Yes.
You lead the commission.
Yes.
But what do you do? What does a day look like for you?
A day can be varied. And I'll back up and say I'm the only full-time person on the commission, and I lead it as far as facilitating the board. And I perceive, even though it's not codified, the chair has a lot of influence in how the board addresses policy, because a lot of policy initiatives will come to my door first, and there's ability to build momentum through the relationships I have in the community and just the working relationship that I have with staff. But my vote counts as anybody else's on the board. And there's some varied constructs to chair positions. There's some chair or leading positions that are solely veto positions across the state.
Oh, okay.
There are very few that have administrative CEO type responsibilities and running day to day.
And that's you.
That is not me. That would be like DeKalb CEO.
Oh, okay.
And she is probably one of the only CEO positions in the state that has the day-to-day responsibility. My responsibility, and similar to commissioners, is to set policy. We do not run government day to day.
Okay.
That's the county manager. She is the lead of the agencies, and she implements.
Jackie McMorris Rogers.
Dr. McMorris,
Dr.
yes.
McMorris Rogers.
And she will be responsible for taking the policy initiatives of the board and implementing it through day-to-day action.
Okay, so if I'm hearing correctly, y'all on the commission set the policy. Her job is to implement that policy.
Yes.
Okay. And you know, this is your 5th year, so I guess one question I have is, I love Cobb County.
Yeah.
You know, I went to school in Cobb County. I was in high school. I lived in Marietta, Shalford Road.
Okay.
Shalford and Trickham, and then I commuted to Campbell. I was in the IB program, graduated IB program back early 2000s.
Yes.
And I live near the Battery, actually, in Cumberland.
Yes.
But I've traveled this county. I argue that it's one of the best counties in the entire country.
No need to argue it when you can assert it. Literally, we were listed as one of the top 5 counties to live in the nation.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh.
This past year in 2025.
And so what are you most proud of? Or what accomplishment have you worked on? And it's a long list, I know.
My greatest achievement is resetting the tone and tenor of how we serve in the county.
Oh, okay.
I remember one of my first meetings that I went to that was facilitated by the chair of the county, and public safety came up, and the energy of that room was just lock them up, throw away the key. And I remember sitting in the back of the room just scratching my head. Why are we not thinking about preventive policies? Mm-hmm. Why are we having an us versus them approach to how we govern this county? Mm-hmm. And I was dismayed to not hear any discussion about that. And I remember talking to a staff member about it. And I fast forward to today, and I look at the partnerships that are being built with public safety and the community. I look at how we are mindful of how we are serving the entire county and aiming to be inclusive so that everyone is a part of the county's success. And I'm not saying that we've achieved it in every aspect of how we operate, but the conversation happens without me having to start it. And many times there may be persons on our staff that will come to me and say, this is what we would like to do to achieve this outcome. That's an inclusive outcome. And these type of discussions did not happen when I first started.
How do you think you achieved that? Like, what was the intention?
Being very purposeful about, first, I don't know if I was purposeful in my own actions, but it became clear to me that perhaps to be an African American in leadership made it seem as if you are one of the few that has the potential to lead. And I know so many people of color who are diverse, who are accomplishing great things here in this county. And I did not perceive I was an exception. I perceived that I was one who could help them see that there are others who are not in the meeting spaces that we're in, who are just as capable of contributing constructively to this county. But some things that I did that were very intentional were talking about, I remember a MSPLOST meeting and looking at it was a public meeting with the Board of Commissioners, and they were sharing the MSPLOST schedule and which projects have been accomplished, which ones were underway, and they had a heat map. And District 4, where I served, was not even warm. And all I did was ask the question, and it was as if I dropped a bomb in that meeting. And it was just to say, if we are serving Cobb County, all of Cobb County, why is this area not as activated when it just comes to implementing projects that you said they would already do? Why are all their projects being left behind?
I could venture to guess a reason.
It's just those questions. It's somebody I remember working. I don't like to call out different people, but it was a staff member that said, we are getting ready to put an RFP in place for a road project in District 4. And this is the first year that we are going to make sure that we address the substrate so that you don't continue to have the road issues, because we realized as we were digging up the pavement that you did not have the same foundation that was in some other areas. I'm talking about things as base, pun intended, as this, when it came to serving this area of the county.
So is it fair to say then that there was a disproportionate allocation of resources within the county?
I have never gotten the numbers, so I won't assert that. But there was a disproportionate response. There was disproportionate, to me, service. And disproportionate is not always looking at are things equal, but this is when you throw in that nasty term that people don't like to talk about, are things equitable?
It's not a nasty term here, but other people take it in that way, I guess.
If you have an area where data shows you that the salaries of the per capita salary in this area lags the other areas, and also their educational attainment, then why are your libraries all clustered outside of that area? Why are your longest library hours in the areas that have highest educational attainment? And it's not just that people are looking to put resources in areas that are resourced because there's something nefarious. But oftentimes what I saw is those areas that were more affluent were more motivated to advocate, more motivated to and able to advocate for the things that they desired. And not only were they more adept at doing that, the leadership of the county, the chair positions of the county always came from those areas. So the way that the board was constructed, it typically had actually 3 commissioners representing the more affluent areas. So they can set policy not only based off of the feedback that's being given by citizens that are activated, but by commissioners just driving through and seeing issues. And that's what I would do. And it's funny because I used to tell staff, I can get in an accident driving to the county every day because I look to the right and I see an issue that we can address as a county, and I look to the left and I'm not looking to where I need to go. But that was the blessing of living in the Six Flags area for 20 years. And so some things that seem minor to do for some other communities took my voice, and then not only my voice, but my persistent voice, because now you have someone sharing, get it done. But I don't have the echoing voices of the community behind me that other areas had. So to me, I almost felt like I had Charlie Brown syndrome. We need to, because they kept,
just take the football away.
Because they kept hearing from me on all these things. And what I would do is I learned voice to text very quickly. And as I was driving, I would call in or text these issues. And being an engineer, I would always want to put things in email, and then I would follow up on them. And I found just by sharing and persistently following up and asking why, well, why isn't this? Why isn't this the case? And I found over time that people saw that I truly cared about the improvement of this community. So from a staff perspective, I started to get responsiveness, but I realized very early that if I'm not here, I need what is starting to happen here to continue with or without me. So I started having community meetings. My first year, I think I had 11 town hall meetings.
Wow.
Just my first year. And then the next year, I think I had 6. I would just continue to have public meetings. And then I started having monthly zoning meetings because in those zoning hearings where people are making generational decisions about what goes where, and people put a building, it's not going anywhere. And in the more affluent areas, they would put in conditions to make sure the landscaping was nice, the hours were amenable, the architecture was excellent and complemented the areas. And then when we would have cases that impacted the areas that were more moderate income or more minority, nobody would show up. And so I started bringing the zoning cases to the community and saying, this is what I'm getting ready to make a decision on. What do you want me to say when I address this?
It's like it completely flips it on its head, right? Like the way it is right now, it feels like you have to show up to zoning. You have to pay attention. You have to make comment. You're saying that you took the zoning and brought it to the people. I
brought it to the people.
Interesting.
Yes, every month. And then the developers started coming to my community meeting. And so I started to facilitate the discussions that perhaps more savvy areas of the county were able to do directly with developers. I started holding those opportunities for discussion so that we can negotiate better outcomes for how the south part of the county was being developed. And it was not just for me to be that advocate. I would say, who is coming to this zoning hearing, and try to build a record. And if we couldn't build a record on camera with people testifying, can you send me an email? Send me an email and tell me what you want. Send the commissioners an email of what you want, because if there's an actual case or a hearing, if something gets appealed with a zoning case, all of your emails become part of the zoning record. So I just wanted everybody to know, too, that when I speak, I'm not just speaking for me. And I think it led to me being very passionate, because even though I would go to meetings, people would just see me, but I was carrying everybody that I talked to in those meetings. And I didn't just talk to people in meetings. When I was a commissioner, too, I would go door to door where my cases were. I would ask them, do you know this is happening? What are your thoughts on it? So I felt like I was carrying those people with me. And even when I didn't know if I had those voices, I led a similar campaign when I was running for office. I went door to door and knocked on, over 1,000 doors. And you feel like when you look somebody in the eye and they tell you what their interests are, what their concerns are, you're carrying that with you and responding not just to what's in front of you at that hearing, but you're responding to those who are entrusting you with the vulnerabilities and the hope that they've communicated to you.
Well, so something you said, and the hope, like you've been an inspiration to people, right? And one person in particular that I know well, Sam Foster.
Oh yeah,
who you supported during the mayoral election. We're 89 votes short. Yes. But he had been on a podcast, and they had asked him, who does he admire most in Cobb County? Yeah. And the reason why he said you was because, and you alluded to this, being African American in Cobb County and being a commissioner was a unique experience, let's put it that way. And yes. I don't know how much, well, I know only a smidgen of the vitriol and the mean words and yes. lack of responsiveness, shall we say, the dismissiveness yes. of you, the sexism thrown your way,
yes.
the racism thrown your way. Yes. And you have maintained this persona that doesn't seem to have really let that sway you in the goal. How do you do that? Because if it was me, I'd be flipping people off left, right, and center. How do you keep that composure?
Multiple factors. And first, I'll confess, I don't keep that composure 100% of the time. Okay. In my heart, I would desire to do that. But every time I don't is an opportunity for me to learn. And there was a time I kept that composure a lot less. And before I answer the question, I'll just share with you some things that I've learned over time. So the same energy I carried to meetings with me as a commissioner, those that are diametrically opposed to my interests carry that with them as well. Those that are upset and angry with me, they carry who they've talked to as well. And if we all bring that energy to the same space, even if you perceive that your position is steeped in ideal, in that form, we're just boxers in a ring, laying out our best arguments, jabbing each other, and we're all coming out bloody, but who's coming out better for it? And I could keep that kind of energy. And I think when you're a commissioner, it was much easier for me to have that energy because I knew the district I represented didn't have an advocate like me. And people needed to hear that voice with persistence. But as a chair, my role is less of a player, and I would say more of a conductor. I've got to bring all of this together so that we can create and move something forward. And
that sounds like takes a lot of energy.
It takes a lot because people, it's funny, I laugh at myself. My spirit animal is a lion.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm quiet, but people don't know. I'm a very passionate and I am strong-willed.
And
you asked about my running.
I learned running.
And competitive. But there's a time and place for everything and a way to channel that. And for me, I know how I am as a person, and I've learned very early, and this had to do with me wanting to be an engineer. I knew I was very passionate when I was younger, and I knew that if I wanted to be able to be effective, I needed to do it systematically and know how to lay out arguments and to be thoughtful. And so I deal with the yin and yang of my personality because I also have an English degree, which is more my artsy side. Yeah, I love writing and literature. Yeah, okay. But
those you don't see together very often.
You don't see. No, tell me how it works. But there was something in me that told me very early that to be able to be received, to be able to channel it, there was a different way that I was going to have to go about it. Also, another thing that I had to reconcile as I grew older and grew in faith, and I read my word and pray every day, and it's recalibrating to me every day. There's a way that I am in my spirit, and there's a way that I know God desires me to be. And I prefer the way that He desires for me to be beyond who I know in my roughest element that I am. And so I'm constantly reconciling that, because it's not so much that I need to respond to the people in front of me. I need to respond to something greater that every day I'm held accountable to, and I know I will be at the end. And that not only helps me, but the word helps me, because I know that I'm not the first person to go through hardship. Mm-hmm. So the more I read and I see the challenges of other persons of faith, then I feel like I walk in that strength and I see how they've overcome it. This is just what I'm seeing, this anger, this frustration people have, it's how they feel, but it's really temporary. What lasts longer is going to be those things that are good, those things that are helpful, those things that continue to help humanity move forward. And I just try to stick to that goal.
Well, it's so constantly. Interesting you say that, because, we're living in a time, unprecedented times. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many times have we said that? But yeah, the Constitution is under attack.
Say it. Yeah.
Everywhere. Yes. You see what's happening in Minnesota, and people are afraid. You see ICE breaking the Constitution, kidnapping people, forcing a man in his underwear to be in the cold, taking a 5-year-old as hostage. And I think so many people right now feel not only the anger, but the fear. And it's really hard. I can only speak for me specifically right now, but it's really hard for me to see everything and feel the fear, the rage, the anger.
Yes.
But that is in complete contradiction to the Jain faith that I have of nonviolence. I
hear you.
Non-possessiveness, non-absolutism. And it feels for so many people we're constantly struggling with ourselves.
Yes.
But you seem to have leaned into the faith and leaned into that and kept that as your North Star. Is that fair?
It's fair. But I don't want you to perceive that I'm acquiescent to that same energy you feel when you see this this degradation of civility and our Constitution and all human norms that we knew. But I stand strong when it comes time for policy. I don't budge. That's how I've had to learn to fight. I know
so the tenor of the conversation is different, but the policy does not change.
The policy, in fact, I'm more committed. So people the energy and everything could be at a 10. But I also know my commitment to addressing those human conditions that you talked about is also a 10. Mm-hmm. So you can come at me with the might and your energy, and I'm going to respond with the might, a unique might that I have and that every policymaker has, is in our decisions. And in our decisions here at the county level, it's 3 out of 5. It's not that many. Mm-hmm. And I always want to be in that number of the person who's making a decision that's going to make life better for everyone, and especially the most vulnerable, for those that are behind. I pray I will always be in that number, and if I'm not, that God will make it very clear to me what happened there. And that is where I want to be strong. And this is where I get frustrated as a 13-year leader. Mm-hmm. And I get frustrated when I see those on the side of humanity and what's right, acquiescing our power to to shatter these conditions that continue to leave people behind and create havoc for people who are other, and that keep people from having a fair shot. It bothers me to no end to see us give up the moment and the power to do what is right for so many who will not have the ability to come to the meetings and communicate with you. But you know what those issues are without somebody having to tell you. And you know what it's like to be stepped on, even as an elected official. You know what it's like, because many of us were born with a silver spoon in our mouths. We know what it's like to be without, to be desperate, and to not remember those situations when we set policy every time. That is my biggest frustration. And, I'm a member of where we can speak politically, a member of a Democratic Party that says that we are about these things. And that in 2020, as you said, the majority of people voted with us. But I've gone in too many meetings and been the recipient of decisions made even higher than me from people of the same party. And I'm wondering, why did you not stand firm to help us? Because if you don't, who will? And when will you do it? Because you're not promised for the stars to align. You're not promised to have the will of the people. You're not promised to have the funding. You're not promised to have the bill or the measure or the vote. And when those stars align and you still don't move, I've got an issue with that.
You will find no disagreement here. I mean, we have taken, I use maybe different terminology. I'm a progressive Democrat. I take issue with establishment Democrats, the corporate Democrats that have seemed to acquiesce to large corporations and have a large reason why people do not believe in the Democratic Party. The Chuck Schumers of the world that don't do shit. I mean, it's part of my language. Let me ask you about this, because one of the times where I met you, I was advocating for the MSPLOST, and obviously that did not fail. Did not work out. What lesson did you learn from that experience?
There's multiple lessons learned, but one of them was that so much work was being done to bring those corporate voices.
I mean, the chamber was behind it.
To the center. More energy should have been in activating those that needed the service, or those that didn't need it but knew somebody who did. So I think it was a top-heavy approach to a more moderated activity of voting. When you vote, it's not companies that vote, it's the people that vote. And I've learned from that, when it comes to policy initiatives, you better start and not just end with people, you build with them. And then you get that corporate support, because there was a desire to get the dollars to then reach people. But I should have known. I would have never arisen to become the District 4 commissioner
without listening to the people
and to become chair unless I was very people oriented. So that was a lesson learned, and something that I shifted through an all-in approach. So when I was reelected chair last year, we had 3 public meetings to just talk about policy. Not only what we do, but why we do it. So we talked about the budget, talked about economic development, talked about sustainability. And those meetings were very well received, and just distilling information. And what I could have done was gone back to my grassroots, gritty Lisa that lived in the Six Flags area and who wasn't afraid to go door to door when I was campaigning, because I used to already go door to door on things in the community. That's the kind of approach I could and should have had. And I'm not saying it would have got us over the finish line. Maybe if it wasn't successful with that approach, I would have said, oh, we should have got the businesses more involved. That's probably what I would say.
Hindsight feels like 2020, right?
Yes. But I know my energy wasn't there. I kept going to all these spaces where I would talk to engineers, planning groups, development groups, and even they would say, oh, I live in Cobb. I didn't even know you were doing that. And they kept telling me that the closer we kept getting to November, which was very odd. So that was one thing. And I've learned that if we will be putting transit on a ballot, I will be out. In fact, I'm not even waiting for that. I want to ensure that...
Because the need hasn't gone away.
The need hasn't gone away. And it's not just about one policy area. It's about government, period. I felt most effective in my role with governance as a district commissioner when I was where the people are. And this is part of the rub being the chair. Because my heart is always to be where the people are. My work has got to be on shifting big policy, which puts me in those big rooms of big corporations. I serve on almost a dozen boards and committees because of my position, where I get data, I get information, I get these best practices, but I don't have then the bandwidth to then disperse and share and connect. And it's hard because I remember when I first started as chair, it was natural to me to be responsive to everyone that contacted me. And then at the end of the year, I said, Lisa, you can be the best responsive person, but if you don't move big policy initiatives forward as a chair, you will have wasted this moment. You've got to think about how you're going to shift the momentum, the needle on these big policy things, or else the county won't change in those big policy areas. You will be continuing that responsiveness. And my heart is still hurt about it because I've learned that if you're in the ivory tower, you don't really know the pulse. So what I've done is I have these days where I take calls. Last year I had 11 public meetings to talk. What I did was, let me back up. I had this all-in approach. I'm going to take big policy areas. I'm going to bring it to the community. My biggest one facing the county last year was House Bill 581, state mandate, had to vote on how homestead exemptions.
Right. Okay. Yes.
And it was a great controversy. We opted out.
Okay.
After I had 11 public meetings. I had 9 town halls and I had 2 meetings with students at KSU. And I wanted to distill something complex. And we brought in some other policy things that we were talking about, the UDC. Right. We talked about emergency management
Unified
at these minutes.
Look
at you, doctor. You know more about that than I'm sure I know about what you do. But that was my way of taking a big policy thing and distilling it to people. So I just went to communities that probably were some more receptive to me, some less. But I didn't want anyone to say they didn't know the decision that we're getting ready to make and they didn't have a voice. And so that is going to be my approach when it comes to big policy things. I didn't have 11 meetings on MSPLOST. And with everything, there's trade-offs. So House Bill 581, I went so hard in the paint with that you forget that you have all of these other issues going on. And there's so many issues that come up all the time. So I realized that even though that's a great approach for tackling big issues, that when you're tackling one thing, that means you're not addressing some other thing.
Opportunity cost, right?
There you go. That's it. And I suffer with that because this heart of mine wants to be helpful to everyone. But the reality is, if you focus on everything, you can't focus on anything.
And with MSPLOST, we had Sam on, we had Matt Stigall on, and I think one of the lessons they learned, I want to see what you think about this, is should we take a more incremental approach rather than asking for all of it all at once, kind of prove it and then build on that. I think reasonable people can make an argument either way. Where do you fall?
I did not want to take an incremental approach that was proposed before I became chair. And there were two. So Chairman Lee, God rest his soul, wanted to have transit along Cobb Parkway.
Right.
And I did not support it because I had been on the board long enough to see that if your big policy interests don't include the vulnerable, nobody's coming back to grab them. And I felt as if there was going to be this energy on Cobb Parkway that would never reach in to put transit and to build transit and strengthen transit in the areas that were most dependent on it. And that was the South Cobb area.
Right. Okay.
So then there was another iteration to put transit up the I-75 corridor going to the Cumberland area. And there were questions, should it grab KSU? Should it go up to Ackworth? And then just include District 4. And again, I had concerns. District 4 was going to be the greatest benefactor of that approach. And sometimes I need to recognize the moment and stop cushioning it with my concerns about past experiences that didn't go well. But those past experiences to me are a teacher as well. So I don't know if I always do the best job in balancing what I've learned in the past and taking the opportunity to move forward. So my concern with that approach is that if you're going to put all this investment and it's just going to affect District 4, there's only one commissioner that represents District 4. It didn't have the majority behind it.
Get the votes of the other commissioners?
So I could get the votes, but if they wanted to change it, they had the power to do that. So I felt like if District 4 was going to be invested in transit, I needed other areas to come with me to make sure it was sustainable. Because what I didn't want was for something to happen just to benefit District 4. And as soon as District 4 wasn't hot, there were other 4 people on the board to say, you know what? We put that over there in District 4, but we don't have the money to fund it, or we don't really want it like that. I was so used to feeling othered on other policies. I felt like I need to grab others on the board so they had just as much skin in the game. And I didn't feel like we would have that if it was just a District 4 carve out.
Well, let me ask you this.
And I didn't know this big wave was coming in 2020 that would change everything.
So, there's going to be a South Cobb Transfer Center, or is there a South Cobb Transfer Center?
There's one that is slated to be in South Cobb.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, and I'm asking this really just as a question of a citizen of Cobb County.
Okay.
One idea that I've talked to people about is having an airport shuttle. I think like maybe more than anything, getting to the airport without having to take an Uber, get dropped off, is maybe one of the biggest needs of people because we have the world's largest airport here.
Yes.
What are the challenges of getting Cobb Link down there? I mean, I imagine crossing county lines is an issue. Is insurance an issue? What are we missing?
Having enough voices to advocate for it.
Oh, for real? We can do that?
You can advocate for anything you want to.
But like, how possible is it?
I'm telling you, those voices weren't present in this discussion. So much so that it was moderated that we can just take those people to MARTA and then they could take MARTA down. And there wasn't enough offset of that solution. And let me back up. So we had a lot of money that we were projected to collect if the MSPLOST passed.
Yeah.
And there were questions of, do you try to address efficiency, getting people through Cobb as quickly as possible, or do you try to focus on connectedness? touching as many points in the county to get them access to transit.
Sure.
We had a blend of both.
Right.
And so if there was a focus solely on efficiency, then there would have been more discussion about how we get people through to the airport.
Mm.
But because of the balance of both, and not only that, but we had consultants sharing with us how we could best maximize this opportunity, that didn't come up as one of those things that we should do.
I see.
Now, if more people were looking at the plans, they would have said, if you get this, do you know how many people in other parts of the county would support this because they traveled? Just getting those voices to uplift that element.
Okay.
And that was the hard part of the SPLOST. And I think it gets back when it's too top heavy, when we're just focusing on the consultant side, because that's what you're supposed to trust, or just focusing on the corporate side and you're not lifting the voices. And don't get me wrong, there were several opportunities for the public to weigh in, but that feedback was taken in and then put in a study as opposed to it just being driven by people. And I'm afraid that the same thing could happen with our SPLOST program. It's built out before the public even sees it.
Okay, I mean, that I wasn't gonna bring it up, but like, you know, we're focused on money in Cobb County, how it's spent. We've had Heather Tolley-Bauer here discussing the Cobb County School Board, which is a separate pot of money. But I believe you guys get $1 billion, give or take a little bit, in SPLOST dollars that we have to allocate, and people, myself included. How do we come up with where we're going to allocate those resources?
The public needs to advocate strongly at the public meetings that are going on now.
Okay.
And the online links that are taking place now. And it's important to do that.
Yeah. But what I hear you telling me is if you go and make public comment, y'all listen.
Public comment, we listen to. And it's not just one or two people. It needs to be a lot of people.
Okay.
That are, let me back up. Because I have seen two people be very effective in changing policy all on their own by being persistent and continuing to beat the drum, meeting after meeting with the same message. But they had a lot of time that they were doing it. And they were persistent in talking about something that kind of shamed us as a county. One had to do with our medical examiner's office, and another one had to do with, which is very unfortunate, it shamed the leaders of the time. And I wasn't on the board, but I was a citizen. And when I was a citizen, I used to come to watch the meetings. It was these families that were living 2 to 3 generations in a family that don't live like we do, that park their cars differently than they do, and put their toys out on the lawn differently than they do, and that have more vehicles than most people have here. And this is not the Cobb County that I know. Board of Commissioners, you need to change this. So in response to that, we had a policy put forward that only certain relations of people can live in a home.
And only so many people non-related. I think it was no more than 2 or 3?
2 unrelated.
2 unrelated, which, it doesn't help
Adults.
When you have a housing crisis.
Exactly. So what you may not know at one period of time, you may not know the ripple effects that it can have and the broader ripple effects. Because what I started to see even before the housing crisis was the caregiver, I won't call it a crisis, but phenomenon where a lot of older parents were being taken care of by their middle-aged children.
I see it all the time.
And then they had to have caretakers living in the home. And then you had the economic downturn that was still impacting people. So you had younger generations moving back home. And these aren't the people that look differently. These are the people who, by the economy, perhaps are living different than the Cobb County standard that we thought was a normalized standard when the lady was
like
advocating.
2 cars in a garage and a home, and
it was starting
nuclear family, and that's it.
Yes, I think the caregivers and the economic downturn started to shift it even before the housing crisis through these land use permit applications. And then also Kennesaw State was growing.
Right.
And you had students that could not live on campus,
right,
but who needed to live near the campus. And so they were living in homes near the school,
mm-hmm.
but you can't have more than 2 unrelated people living near the school. So these issues were already cropping up, and they actually layered now on top of the housing crisis with all of the land use permit requests that we're getting.
So let's try to shift to something
how do we get
more
to that?
positive. I have this effect on people.
MSPLOST. I'm trying to figure out how do we get to this. What I'm trying to say is this. MSPLOST, there are a lot of things. I was fighting for my life. And I say that I could either fight for the SPLOST or I could fight to stay as a chair.
Mm-hmm.
And that also weighed into it. Like, how much energy am I going to put on MSPLOST versus if I have the ability to be reelected? Because I didn't want for us to be a term of progress to then go back.
Right, right.
So I realized there'll be another day to address MSPLOST if I can help advocate for it.
Well, I think the conversation has definitely started, right?
So the conversation has started, but the big learning is grassroots. I think big policy issues need to be met with a big grassroots effort. And this county has given the roadmap or the opportunity for the public to weigh in on SPLOST. That's the takeaway I want to have here.
Well, that's what I'm taking away. I'm going to be taking away that we need to get organized. We need to be persistent. We need to be constant, and we need to have relationships with our elected representatives to be able to advocate effectively for the things that we want.
Yes. See, the thing is, when I go on Nextdoor and Facebook, when I'm around conversations of people who complain more about conditions than they are willing to elevate it to the decision makers or in a way that decision makers can respond, that frustrates to me no end. Yes, you get a release, but you're not being effective.
No, keyboard warriors, right?
There was a business owner in our community who had something very bad happen to them. And the only reason I knew about it, they eventually called me about it. And then he told me, yeah, I put it on Facebook. But he called me like weeks or months after. And I said, you know me. Why didn't you pick up the phone immediately? You know, we could have addressed that right then and there. Mm. But it was easier for you to go express and vent and all your frustrations. And you didn't even know that all you had to do was pick up the phone. As soon as he called me, weeks or months after, we got it addressed that day.
That day.
That day. That day.
Wow.
Because what happened should not have happened. And if we only knew, that's the thing, there's 4,500 to 5,000 employees in this county. There are 800,000 citizens, thousands of businesses. The chances are that an employee that works in your area of concern is going to see your issue and activate it to get addressed is slight. Mm-hmm. But the fact of you seeing it and being able to call, your ability to move it is huge.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I've during this entire process of interviewing people, we interviewed Rura Roman, specifically, she comes to mind, and she said, I myself listened to all the messages, which kind of blew my mind. And what you're saying is that if you have an issue, be vocal with your elected representatives to be able to address your issue.
Directly. Not through these echo chambers that make you feel good and sound good. Email is best. It memorializes your concern. Nobody can ignore it.
So you're saying, because I think the thinking is I'm going to send an email, it goes out to the void. But you're saying, no, that is an effective way because it creates a record.
It creates a record. But you can give voice to the record.
Okay.
Public comment is also effective. It memorializes your comments in a video that will be there. It doesn't always move the board. I told you 2 individuals who are very effective. It took them coming to meetings back over and over and over again. Eventually they got responses. it can be effective, but it's almost less effective today, to be honest. It's good, but there's so much abuse of it and so much vitriol that happens during public comment that it's difficult when I've had constituents come to meetings that had true concerns in their community, that I've had a pothole that impacted my car. My child can't get to the bus. It needs lighting. Their voices are drowned out by all of those that come to the meeting
and just
vitriolically to just complain generally about gripes. And I'm not saying their gripes aren't legitimate, but there's some that could have activated county issues that we could respond to immediately through some of our services in our departments. They may not get a chance on the mic. And some of them have been intimidated to speak when they come into the environment. I know from talking to various people. So I used to always tell people, come and share a public comment. I don't know if it's as effective anymore. It's effective if you get a chance to speak. It's effective if you get a chance to speak, and it's effective if you can be narrow in specifically what you want.
Okay.
As opposed to just being general. Why can't y'all do this?
Yeah,
can you please help me? Yes.
Okay. Second to last question, and it's a more positive question. So you have 3 more years in your term.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking forward to the most?
Oh my.
Like what you had like a big project? Because one of the things that I've been activated by or excited by is the autonomous vehicles in Cumberland.
Yes.
I think that if it goes well, shows a potential avenue, for connectivity.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Like, let's say if we wanted to connect, for example, downtown Smyrna with downtown Marietta, going right up Atlanta Road, and you had a autonomous vehicle that could do that because you have Atlanta Road that runs right next to the railroad tracks in Dobbin. So something like that. That excites me, and I would get a lot of use out of that because I live there. But is there anything in particular?
I'm excited about our board working better together.
Okay.
To speak more philosophically, I like the tenor of a couple of our past meetings and how we've been able to get some difficult things done. I look forward to us addressing housing, which I think is a difficult path forward.
Mm-hmm. Because dirt's not cheap. Building materials aren't getting any cheaper.
And NIMBY's voice is continuously
I'm
loud.
Glad you said it.
And louder.
Yeah, it's always NIMBY's people.
Every day. And we're going to need some courage on a board of 5 for 3 to move this policy forward. And it's easier said than done because they know, like I knew, that if you disconnect from those that put you in that position, you may not get a chance to move forward some policy issues that are important. But the concern I also have is that if you don't allow yourself to move on those big policy issues because concern of preservation, those big policy issues will never move forward.
You miss the moment.
You miss the moment. And so I've had to come to that realization. For me, one of the things I was very concerned about, I felt like I had the weight of Samson on me about retaining this role as chair because I knew how important for Cobb County's progress for it to maintain a 3 out of 5 majority of people who wanted to see the county move forward for everyone. Mm-hmm. That pressure is a little bit less now. So I can push a little bit more.
I see.
Because I believe the county is such that it is highly likely this 3 out of 5 is going to be sustained. And
that's what we're working on the ground, organizing wise, to not let anything get out of, I think we've learned from years past. I think my political awakening really happened with the election of Obama.
Yeah.
But that was at the top and we lost all the way on the bottom, and we're not going to do that again.
Yes.
I mean, we've been organizing here, and that's what we hope, is that no matter, as long as the person that is there is willing to, be a not a, let's say, a Democrat that listens. Let's put it that way. We are willing to get behind them and put our infrastructure to that. And so, the final question I have for you is something I ask everyone in the hospital. I think I know what your answer is, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What brings meaning into your life? What makes life worth living for you?
My faith every day. Every day. And without it, my life has none. It's the only construct that makes any of this, not just serving, living, breathing, mothering, loving, learning, falling, getting back up, worthwhile, is to know what the end is. And I'm very grateful for it. This role has strengthened my faith. I can't say that I prayed and read my word every day before, but with the things that I've had to deal with, everything from imposter syndrome to feeling let down by the people that you entrust in, to being so passionate about wanting to see things move forward and not being able to take others with you sometimes. The sacrifice my family makes every day of my time, me seeing my children, as much as I'd like, me pouring into them, me being present with my husband as much as I would like, me foregoing a path of law, which sometimes I feel in my heart, I really want to be an attorney. I want the courtroom. Just me foregoing a lot of things I feel are just calibrated by a sense of faith and purpose, that it is all working out as it should, even in the midst of all of that, that there's a calm and a peace and hope. And things will always be better. And I'm grateful to be a part of helping things to be better.
Well, Chairwoman Cupid, we are thankful for your service.
Thank you.
If I didn't say that, let me say that it is not, I can imagine, an easy role to be in, not an easy landscape to navigate, not easy to take the abuse, which I've suffered a little bit,
I'm sure.
but not to the extent that you have. And the sexism component I don't have to deal with, being a man. And so I recognize that. And I wish you nothing but success.
Thank you.
Here, future endeavors. I feel like I know you better after this conversation. I hope other people feel that they know you better, because I imagine sometimes it's, when you're dealing with so much, it may be hard to let the guard down.
Yeah.
But this space, you've given your time, and I certainly appreciate it. Hope to have you back on when you push for another big policy objective. We would love to support you, and you've given me a lot to think about. So thank you very much.
Thank you. This was a great opportunity.